Hey, welcome to Gridiron Gurus for the Kennebec Journal and Morning Sentinel. I'm Travis Lazarczyk alongside Drew Bonifant. Drew, how you doing?
Fired up. Last week of the season, big games coming up. Let's get going.
All right. Our guest this week is Nokomis High School head coach Jake Rogers. Coach, thanks for being with us.
Not a problem.
You have a team that has shown maybe as much, if not more, improvement than any team in the state the last 2 years. You inherited a team that came off of back-to-back 0-8 seasons last year. 6 wins, now 4-3 heading into the final week. Kind of talk about some of the things that have been key to getting this Nokomis thing going.
It's been we had a good group, a small group last year, seniors that really led the way, just with the way they practice, just leading by example. And this new group of seniors, it's taken them a couple of weeks, decide to become. They're the new seniors, so they're figuring it out. And I've noticed a real growth the last 3 or 4 weeks with that. Really started the 11th week, so we keep trending up. So that's what I'm really hoping they just keep doing, and they're trying to teach the younger guys to do the same thing. So I'm hoping it just keeps passing. Each class just keeps passing it down. So
now, with improvement in a few wins comes expectations, which is something that it's probably new for all of them to deal with. How has that been something that you've had to manage?
Well, that was what the expectations we could feel early on, and I think dealing with a couple of losses right out of the gate and not knowing how to handle it because they didn't have to go through that last year because we just had that one loss early on and that was it. But I feel they've handled it. They've gotten over it. They understand that you just got to keep waking up every day and just start from scratch, and I think they're finally figuring that out, and with the plays shown on the field too.
Yeah, it's part of the process.
Yeah.
Now, I'm sure you as a coach like having the tougher schedule, but who did you anger at the scheduling? To get in your league, you've got like MCI coming up this week. We'll talk about that in a minute. But you've played Herman, you've played Winslow. 2 very good teams who are ahead of you in the standings. Then your crossover game was at Leavitt, who's number 1 in the South.
I mean, I wanted to be battle tested going into the playoffs this year because I felt I appreciated that schedule last year. We had some games that we knew we could be competitive in, pretty much straight through.
Right.
And this year I really wanted that tough schedule, but could have taken a little bit easier road. It's been good though. The kids know that they really need to step their game up if they want to be at the highest level.
Yeah,
so.
well, you just mentioned yourself that Leavitt game. You saw some things, even though you guys lost that game, that you can continue to build with.
I mean, we were competitive throughout that game until about 8 minutes left in the fourth is when they got that last score, and I could see just defensively that we hadn't shown the speed that I know they can play with, and we showed it that game. So, and since then we've been playing at a much faster pace defensively, and that's really what I really want to see more of it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Going off Travis's point about the tough schedule, is that something where you'll use that as a talking point with your team to say, like, hey, I know it's a tough schedule. These are tough teams. We're really going to need your best each and every week because kids can. If you're losing games, kids will get frustrated, even if they're understandable losses, close losses against good teams. But is that something where you need to kind of hammer home that point of, hey, it's a tough schedule and there are going to be some tough times coming up?
Yeah, I would rather deal with that adversity over dealing with an inflated ego. Yeah. If we had a straight schedule, maybe if we don't play the top 3 teams in the league and we're undefeated, we're undefeated, but you go into the playoffs more or less a paper 1 seed because you haven't really faced any adversity. And that was really going into the year. I really didn't want that. I wanted to face the top competition so the kids knew right out of the gate where they stand. And, playing Winslow right out of the gate, it was an early example of, I took the blame for it. We had too many men twice on special teams. And that really set the tone after that week because we said that was pretty much the game right there because it cost us a fake punt and it gave them, we had a 3rd and long. We had too many men on a punt return. They got the first down. They scored. Pretty much the game. So since then, we haven't had any issues on special teams having too many men on the field. So, I mean, it right there was a prime example of playing a great team, can't have a mistake. it can cost you. So the kids kind of understood that after that game, and it still burns them a little bit that cost them a game. So they bought into the playing a tough team. It's okay if you lose, but you got to show up. So
I remember that was one of your main talking points after that Winslow game. So
yep, still is today.
Sure.
we do special teams recall. The kids wonder why we do it. It's just literally we call out a special team. The kid's got to step out, get a count. If we don't have a kid out, why aren't you out there? If he's not out there, sometimes kids lost the playing position because of it. Yeah. So it's a serious thing. We try to preach it, and the little things end up being big things in big games. So
sure.
When you look at these last 2 seasons, I mean, because Travis started off with the point about the improvement that this team has made. Is there a point that you can kind of pinpoint it to where you either realized, hey, we really have something to work with here, we really have something going, or started to realize this team is really capable of being a pretty good team? Like, is there kind of like a turning point that you can point to where things seem to really?
I don't recall a turning point, but it was just during the summer. We have a lot. It's a small group, but it's a tight-knit group that they were there for all the summer stuff, all the 7-on-7 games, and we're allowed to. We have a lot offensively that we run. Just the way that we communicate, it can be confusing. Like my younger guys, it goes in one ear, out the other, but my older guys know for the most part exactly what we're doing, and there's a lot of verbiage. So I mean, with that, it's just the way they are able to take it in, take it out to the field and execute it is where I'm like, okay, this group's they've got talent and they can execute. Okay. They can take my thinking and put it to use on the field. So that's when I really had that feeling where they could do something special if they really want to.
Yeah, I didn't know if that you won that Oceanside game last year where with the last minute drive. I don't know if that was a moment, or if it was just kind of those games at the end of the year where it gets to be crunch time and the team kept playing well. Yeah. If that's kind of where.
I mean, and they're two different groups too, because last year they really didn't know how to win yet.
Yeah.
I mean, it goes back to that exhibition game. I mean, it was an exhibition game. We went on a Hail Mary. They rushed the field like it was a state game.
Sure.
And I mean, it was chaos. And I'm like, coming from a program that wins a lot of games, I was like, well, okay, I got to remember these kids. They hadn't won in a while, and that was new to them. So this group, they've tasted winning, so it's kind of old. That was a different exhibition game this year. We scored a ton of points early, and it was like, okay, we're done. Let's get ready for Winslow. So I mean, it's very different from one year to the next. It was very different, just attitude-wise, because they expect to win, they want to win. So when it doesn't happen, it's a real rough thing for them. So it's been very different from last year to this year.
Sure. Who are some of the seniors you've seen step up into these leadership roles this year? I know you have some guys who've played a lot of varsity football, but how are they adjusting to becoming, the guy?
Yeah, no, I mean, offensively, Andrew, the quarterback, Haining, he has as much grasp of the offense as me, which is, I mean, pretty impressive. He's one of those kids, X's and O's wise, he just loves it. He picks it up really fast, and he wants to do more of it. And, I mean, defensively, I have a ton of kids defensively that have embraced the way I want to run a defense, fast-paced, simple. We're complex on offense, very simple on defense. Sure. Just more or less know your job and go do it. And James Boyd up front has been exceptional on the D line. Kid's a gym rat. Strongest kid I've ever coached. What he can lift for weights is unbelievable. But he has great control on the D line. At the linebacker core, that's our deepest senior group. We technically have 5 linebackers, and they're all seniors.
Wow.
So it's very deep. But I mean, between David Wilson, who's another captain, he's a very strong linebacker, and Quentin Richards, he was one of the top tacklers in the league last year. He plays with his hair on fire on the defensive side of the ball. So it's having those guys in that second level. It really pays dividends.
Sure.
And Alex Castedio really has jumped into that running back role that we didn't have last year because we were more wing T than anything, but we're more spread with one back this year. Alex has really taking it upon himself, being that guy that can carry the ball 20 times if I need him to.
Right.
And he wants to. Like he loved the fact we put in Power I a couple weeks ago.
Sure.
And I hate it, but he loves. It's not mine, and my assistant coach loves it. So get them two together. They're all giddy because they get to run Power I. But that we needed that. We needed that punch of just going straight downhill, and he loves to do it. So I'm glad the kid wants to run the ball that way. So I let him do it. And our running back last year was more of a finesse guy. So it's nice having just that guy that wants to throttle it downfield.
Someone who's not afraid to put their shoulder
Yeah,
down.
yeah. It's good to have. But I mean pretty much every senior is contributing. I think we have 12 seniors. Every single one of them's either contributing on special teams, offense, defense, in some faction of the game. He's playing on game night.
Okay. Big game this week, obviously. MCI, defending state champions, and they've kind of become the rival for you guys.
Yeah. I mean, they're next door. It's a natural rival. I keep telling the kids, it's just a week 8 game.
Yeah.
It's got to be, because I don't want them. You can't make the game bigger than it is. It's a week 8. It never seemed. I'm not used to it because at Lawrence we had Waterville for years as a rival, but even when I played, it's like we're playing Waterville. It wasn't that big of a deal. Mm-hmm. And then when we started playing Messalonsky, it was a big deal, but the kids never acted like it was that big of a deal because there's something about that Nokomis MCI. The kids are much closer. Yeah. They're either buddies or just everyone knows each other. And it's very new to me having a group of kids that know the opponent so well. Like they know their middle names, they know what street they live on. They're very, very close.
No, when I spoke to Andrew Hanning earlier this season, he referred it to as the crosstown game.
Oh,
even though they're towns next door to each other, but
they seem like they're playing within the same district. It's that tight of a connection between the two schools.
Well, I wonder how big into that was the fact that they formed a lacrosse team. MC Nokomis combined for the lacrosse team. So
it has some of it, but I think it goes. There's just a strong connection between those two communities. Because it was there even before the lacrosse. So,
wow.
Yeah. They know each other. I don't know if it's from parents working together, just being so close in the elementary schools. But there is a real strong bond between those two communities for sure.
That's interesting.
Yep.
What stands out about this MCI team? I know there's a lot, but
they're big.
Take all the time you need. Yeah.
They're big. They're physical. They execute at a high level. They're not going to make foolish mistakes. Just watching a lot of film on them. The guys up front, they buy into what they want the kids to believe in, and good technique up front, chest on thigh. They root guys out. What they do is not overly complicated, but they execute it at such a high level where if you're just a little off, they're going to make you pay. They've got a bunch of kids rotating in at the skill positions. Very, very similar to Levitt. I referred to Levitt as, they brought in hockey lines for the skill kids.
Sure.
But their skill kids are more finesse and agile, and MCIs are more, we're going to go forward and good luck stopping us.
Yeah.
They may not beat anybody in a 40, but if you make them run through a wall, I'm pretty sure they'll win that battle. Yeah. That's how it seems like every single one of their skill kids plays. And it seemed that I kept seeing different numbers. It was another team that just brings a new hockey line every time. Right. They're a very talented group. Defensively, they like to get after it. They put a bunch of guys up on the line. They dare you to try to get by them, and most teams haven't had that success yet trying to do it. So, very, very sound team, physical. They get up for it. They remind me a lot of the Lawrence for that long run that we had.
Sure.
The kids believe. They just believe they're going to win every game, and that does a lot. When belief is a great thing to have. So
yeah, they like to run that hurry up, where they don't really huddle as much as they just kind of look over, get the play, and go. What as an opponent can you do to break up that rhythm?
Doesn't affect me a whole lot because we don't sub in many guys, and our defense is more. Our kids are expected to know where to line up when the offense comes out. So, hurry-up teams don't make me that nervous. It's a team that just wants to ground and pound and get 3 yards here, 5 yards there. That's what I get more concerned about. But defensively for us, we're call-wise, it's not that complex for us, so that doesn't intimidate us at all when it comes to the speed of the game.
Is it tougher to practice knowing that they just got to get off the ground and get ready to go because MCI is going to line it up and snap the ball?
They thought Woody does a great job over there getting the kids to buy into the fitness program, and
Right.
the kids really have bought into what they do, and it's just our guys know you better get ready because it's coming, and they're going to keep coming. But I don't mind having a lot of plays. It makes the game interesting.
Sure.
It certainly does, and I like the fact that the tempo of the game is going to be fast. Helps us out a little bit. Just we got some athletes that like to run, so if it does get opened up, it helps us out a little bit. And I'll take having the ball. It's the more offensive plays, hopefully means we might have a chance to score more points too. So.
Yeah. Well, you did play him twice last year, so it's not like you haven't seen this before. It's nothing that you're going to be surprised by.
No, it's and we've shown them on film how they get the big placard and they get the calls in from the sideline. So it's all stuff we're prepping for, and you got to just be ready for it and execute. And if we had substitutions, I'd be panicking a little bit, but
Right.
That's just something you got to work in and get ready for. So it's a challenge.
Sure. Okay. Well, that's the game I will be at on Friday night. Drew, looking at some of the other games this week, you were going to be at the big game in the Pine Tree Conference Class B, Coney Brunswick, where we're not Heel Point Wizards or anything. We think it's for first place, but we haven't done all the math, so we're not 100%. But let's just go on the assumption that the winner of this game is going to get the number 1 seed.
Yeah, clearly, whether it's that or a 2 seed in the bye, either way.
Yeah, there is a bye.
Winner of this game clearly sets themselves up very well for the playoffs coming up. This is a huge game, and it's kind of the game that we've been looking at from middle of the season on. One of these two teams going to meet, and once you saw that it was slated for the last week of the season, it felt like there was a clash coming up. And these teams are playing well coming. Coney's coming off a shutout of Gardner. Brunswick is coming off a win as well. And it's kind of a mix of styles. Brunswick is it does a lot of work on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Cam Hathaway, Nate Gerard, the quarterback, is a big time runner. Donald Bromley, you covered the game against Lawrence. He went off. I think he scored 3 or 4 touchdowns.
Yeah, he had a great game that night.
And Coney is more. Coney's definitely does more through the air with Riley Geyer, who will take off on the ground as well. But it's going to be more of a versatile mix for Coney in that ground attack for Brunswick, and I think it's a test for Coney's defense because this is going to. It seems like we say this every week. Well, how does your defense hold up against this team? How do they hold up against this team? How about this team? But Brunswick in Brunswick. I don't know if this is still the case. It was the case coming into last week. Had the second best scoring offense in the PTCB North, with Coney being first. And so this is going to be this will be a test to see just how well they can match up to a physical ground game, a ground game that's tough to stop from a speed and physicality standpoint. If they're coming out strong in this one, it really bodes well for the chance to hold up against any team that they run into the rest of the way. So along the line, it's hard to look at this game and not see it being a close game. It just looks, anytime I try to talk myself into, maybe Coney puts the team away, you go, look at all these playmakers on the Brunswick side, and you say, maybe Brunswick has the edge this time. And then you remember just how many good defensive players Coney has, especially on that line. They were great against Gardner, so it's looking like a clash for sure.
Right. Coach, when you were at Lawrence for a few years, you guys were in the situation where you'd be playing for a bye. Not sure if you ever had one when you were there or not, but
it started before. We never got the bye when they started the new format.
right.
So.
Is it something as a coach you would want, or I've heard some coaches say, "I just want to play."
I think it all depends on how banged up you are.
Sure.
And like in 2006, we had one in the regular season, and
right.
it timed up perfect. We were injured, and we had Bangor after the bye. So when we got that bye, we're like.
Yep.
Thank you for the bye. We needed it. But in the playoffs, if you're rolling, I can see where it's not an advantage. But at this time of year, I would take a bye. If it helps your guys just have 1 week just to heal up, you might be able to put in a couple of trick plays, hone in on something that you're really lacking, maybe in the special teams department. It is a benefit to it too. You don't want to lose them. If you got a lot of momentum, you don't want to lose it, but there's benefits to having a bye. You can get a lot of work done in a week.
I remember that Lawrence-Bangor game from that regular season, 3-0 up at Bangor, and it was one of the most exciting no-scoring games I've ever seen in my life.
And thank God for the bye, because we would not have won that game without that bye.
Well, you forced a bunch of turnovers, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, and, I mean, our skill, we had a couple of skill guys banged up that week, and we more or less they got a week off. So there are some benefits to it, but I can understand why some guys don't like it.
Sure.
Something to file away on that Coney Brunswick game, though, is that, and this is hardly a major pressing point, but it's something interesting, is that Coney's field was in tough shape for that Gardner game. A lot of there'd been rain before, and a lot of slipping around, sloppy play, and I was there on the sideline for the second half, and you could tell it was a field that had taken a beating, and so they're going to be in Brunswick this week, so you get that bye. That's 2 weeks for there not to be much action going on that field, and for a Coney team that kind of likes to play on a faster track, you wonder if they might get that faster.
With some
track
cold weather coming in,
week.
harden it up. And
I mean, if they can get that for the first week of the playoffs, so just a little side fact.
Something to
Or
file
side
away,
sign,
you're
yeah, I
right.
should say.
Another game in the PTCB that we're looking at is Skowhegan hosting Mount Blue. Skowhegan had the inside track at the number 1 seed in the conference, but then got upset at Lawrence last week. Once again, we're not sure on the heel points, but we think Skowhegan's secured a bye regardless of whether they beat Mount Blue or not. And there's maybe an outside chance that they could be number 1.
Yeah, with heel point math. I mean, yeah.
It looks like they're still going to be number 2 and get that bye, which it looks like they could use with some guys beat up as well. A few big games in the Campbell Conference Class D, True. It seems like every week there's a few big games in this league because everybody's so jumbled up after Wells at 1 and Lisbon at 2.
Mm-hmm.
But Madison playing Spruce Mountain, the winner of that's going to probably get a home game in the first round. And then Winthrop, Monmouth, Halldale playing Mountain Valley in another game with a lot of seeding implications.
When it comes to Madison, I just cannot get a beat on that team.
No.
I mean, I bet you we do picks every week, and I bet you if you look at my success picking Madison, I'm maybe week 8, so I'm maybe 2-5. I mean, it's just it's every time I think that they're all coming off a tough loss, maybe the air was pointing down on this team. They come right back. I thought they were going to lose to Winthrop, Monmouth, Halldale last week. Came back, got a big win there. So, and with Madison and Spruce in particular, they've had pretty similar schedules to this point. Mm-hmm. Both lost to Mountain Valley by close scores. Both had close wins over Oak Hill. So it's hard to imagine any team running away with that game. And Winthrop, Monmouth, Halldale, and Mountain Valley. That's kind of the opposite in that it's one of those A beats B, B beats C, C beats A kind of deals. Because Mountain Valley beat Spruce, Winthrop Monmouth lost to Spruce, but Winthrop Monmouth beat Oak Hill, which beat Mountain Valley.
Yeah, it just shows this league is just insanely tight.
It goes to show just how competitive it is, how close it is, and it really just comes down to which playmakers on which team just have a big night that night. So it's hard to say. Playoffs are at stake because all teams make the playoffs, but it's still it's seeding, it's home field, it's all that.
Right.
So.
And another game in that league, Lisbon and Oak Hill. We know Stason Doucette, Oak Hill's longtime head coach, was at Lisbon for years before he had been at Oak Hill. Imagine he gets up for this game and gets his kids wound up for it too.
Definitely, and I mean, he acknowledged this week that there have been some times where it's been kind of tough this year. They have 2 losses by a combined 4 points,
Right.
And so it's just that feeling of why we just can't get those points we need. We can't get over the hump has kind of set in. And you got to think if they go in and they beat Lisbon, it's that's just a shot of confidence, shot in the arm for that team. So it might be as valuable for that as for anything standings wise.
Yeah, Coach, you haven't had a chance to play Lawrence where you played and
I haven't.
and coached with Coach Herson for a long time. How much fun do you think that would be to get that opportunity? I mean,
it'd be great just to match up with the coach and staff, just because we were a pretty tight group, and It would be emotional. It would be a fun game because I remember coaching with John that first year. He coached his brother first game of the year against the EL, where his father was a Hall of
and
Fame
he
coach.
had a fine playing career as a player.
And had an exceptional playing career, and coached against Messalonsky, where he was coach before. So I mean, that was a year just full of emotion. You know, just I got to see it, and I'm like, okay, that I understand why there's that much emotion, and it would be real fun to do. And,
would it be weird being on the other side of Kai's Field?
It's weird.
Visitors locker room, everything that goes.
Oh
with it?
yeah, but I know the tricks of that place. I probably wouldn't even. I would just stay away. I'd pull a couple of schools have done some sneaky moves coming into Lawrence. You know, just show up a little right before kickoff.
Right.
You know, it seems to work pretty good. So,
Yeah.
but it would be fun for sure. I've been back a couple of times this year. I was at the Coney game and the Skowhegan game, and it's weird sitting on the sidelines and seeing the press box and stuff. So,
Right.
it's definitely a different feeling for sure.
In Campbell Conference Class C, drew a game with some implications is Levitt and Gardner.
Yeah, and it's a rematch of the C South semifinal game from last year. Gardner came up to Levitt and won 7-6. So you would think that there's probably some confidence on the Gardner side that they can get a similar result this time. But it's also been a really tough run of late for that team. The shutout last week was their third straight loss, and you look at Levitt, they're the best scoring team in C South, averaging 34.3 points. But I'm wondering if the bigger number is the 9.7 points that they've allowed per game, because Gardner's defense has started to run into just a bad stretch. It's injuries. They're relying on a sophomore quarterback who has played well at times, but looked like a sophomore quarterback at times, and Noah Reed. They still have a good running attack, but you can just tell that just takes a hit when you don't have the quarterback that can test teams down the field. And so it's going to be a tough test for them just to get that offense back on track. But you got to think at the confidence is high that they can give Levitt a game. Coach, your team played Levitt this year. What stood out about them in terms of the matchup they can be?
When we saw them on film, they seemed to beat everybody running the fly sweep and getting their skill guys out on the perimeter and hitting the tall wideouts in the seams and everything. We seemed to stop that. There was other things that they got us with, and the Hathaway kid really hurt us in the second half, running the ball. You know, he got us beat a couple of times just making exceptional throws. I mean, he had a 40-yard back shoulder fade on us, and my corner was right on the kid. And I look at him, and I'm like, yeah, it's good. But, I mean, when he decided they were running some just option with him up the middle off the fly sweep, and that was what really broke our back, was that. And just the amount of skill guys they have, like, they've got 31 in the backfield. I can't remember the kid's name, but he's their bruising back. If they decide, they can always just run right up the gut with him, and he's always going to gain a yard. And defensively, that was what was shocking to us, is how well they cover. Yeah. You know, we tried crossing routes, we tried verticals, we tried a bunch of different stuff, and it's hard to get open against those guys if you're trying to throw the ball. You know, we had success with a couple of pass routes that got wide open. We executed on that, and then we ran up the gut against them pretty good, and we fumbled inside the 20. We should have had another one, but you know, they're susceptible. You can get yards, but they tighten up pretty quick, and they're fast. They just gotta. And the sad part is they're all juniors.
Right.
I was shocked.
And Hathaway's a sophomore.
And that was real comforting when I heard that. I was like, wow. But when they were calling the kids out, I was shocked. They look like grown men out there. So, I mean, it reminds me of that Brunswick team a couple of years ago when they had 22 seniors. You know, very reminiscent of that. But they're fast. They're explosive, big athletes. You know, I haven't got to see Gardner yet this year, but I believe it's the same staff that's been there for a little while. So, you know, he preaches a real hard-nosed, physical defense and offense. You know, he likes to have that attitude on both sides of the ball. It could be a good matchup because I'm not sure how Freiburg got to him, but I heard it was a lot of power run, and they were very physical with Levitt. So if you can match Levitt physicality-wise, you can definitely take him down.
And that defense for Gardner has started to find its rhythm from last year, its motor from last year, because that became a really hard-nosed unit that was just tough to move the ball against. They could rush the pass, they could stop the run, and they started to look like that this time. They allowed 17 points against Cape, but that was a little misleading. A lot of short fields for Cape, and they only allowed 14 points on defense against Coney. 7 of those points were a scoop and score.
Yeah.
So that defense has started to kind of look the way they were hoping it would look. The question is the offense, and it's like you said, it's not so much, can we move the ball against these guys or not? It's, can you finish those drives with touchdowns and enough touchdowns? Because even if you hold Levitt at bay, they're going to score. Some.
The old cliche, the best defense can be a good offense. If you can control the clock a little bit against them guys and limit their offensive possessions, it's to your benefit. It's just slow the tempo down a little bit, control the ball, keep it on your end of the half of the field, and you can make that game a little bit shorter, limit their possessions, and that was what helped us, because that was what we tried to do that. And outside of me calling for a fake punt in the fourth, we're not a fake punt, but we went for it on fourth down, inside the 20 and held them to a field goal. But I mean, that's what you got to do. You got to be willing to grind out the clock, get across the 50, and if you're not there, punt it away, and just force them to drive the field every time, because they are explosive when they get it going.
No. Seems like every week in Maine high school football we're talking about a game that's the game of the year, and this year I think we actually mean it with the Class B South game between undefeated Kennebunk and undefeated Marshwood. Both teams drew 8-0. I think it's indisputable these are the two best teams in Class B.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And Kennebunk has just been on a roll from the start of the season. I mean, not that Marshwood hasn't, but I mean, Kennebunk has just been blowing teams out left and right. So it's, I mean, if you're a B North team and Kennebunk comes into this game and wins, 40-14 or something, you go, oh, okay, well, I guess nothing wrong with a regional title.
Yeah.
But if Marshwood's able to give him a fight, well, you got something there. Not that, again, Marshwood has also been head and shoulders above, but it will at least show that Kennebunk is mortal after a season which they have looked like they aren't.
Yeah, it's both teams have, I think, been tested once. Kennebunk had Falmouth hung with them for a little bit. For Marshwood, it was Greeley. Should be a very good game, I would think.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I talked about it, the possibility of 40-14, but I feel like it's shaping up more for a down to the wire game, because even if Kennebunk, as good as they've been, but Marshwood also has an outstanding coach, an outstanding program. They've been here before, won title last year. They're not just going to wilt in a game like this.
No, and the game's at Marshwood, so it should be a packed house. Coach, I know we talk about this with every coach every week. You're working on your own thing, but have you kind of had a chance to take a look at some of these other teams from around the state, particularly these two?
I follow them too. Guy I used to coach with at Lawrence, he played for RAF.
Okay.
And I told him I'd seen some clips of him, and I told him, I think your coach got a wagon this year. They look pretty good, and I know a lot of those kids are 3-year starters, 2-year starters, and he actually went and watched them. He was quite impressed with them. He just watching them during pregame. He texted me that they're practicing one-handed catches. No, I'm like, yeah, they're pretty good. That quarterback is exceptional. If you can run the triple option and be a great thrower, that's a nice combo. It really is. And I know the Marshwood D-line they returned everybody from last year, and they were great last year. So I like that matchup of an option team versus a great D-line. I wish I could go and watch that game. It would be nice. It would be a fun. That's gonna be an awesome high school game to watch for sure.
Yeah, it should be a packed house down there in Elliott on Friday night.
Yeah.
All right, that's going to do it for this week. Be sure to come and join us next week when we're talking about the playoffs as they get kicked off. For Drew, for Coach Rogers, I'm Travis. Thanks for joining us this week on Gridiron Gurus.